Alright, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about executive compensation. So, executive compensation, how is that determined? Well, it's determined by the compensation committee on the board of directors, and they set pay and benefits for top executives. And an executive's compensation is kind of a combination of things. The base salary, which is your every 2 weeks or month salary, and that's usually the smallest part. And then of course there's annual cash incentives and perks. Okay, these are usually a much larger portion of the compensation. So you've got stock-based incentives. Usually you're given shares in a company's stock, and the idea is that you will act in the company's interest because you also own stock in that company. So if the stock price rises, you also benefit from that. So there's a few things that you can look at. You've got the most commonly known one is stock options. So that means that you are given the right to buy stock at a given price. So let's say that today shares of company X are $35. If the company continues to do well under an executive's tenure and he or she has stock options and the stock is worth $60 a share, then that executive can buy shares at $35 and then sell them immediately and make a profit of $25 a share, just like that. So the executive has an incentive to make sure that the stock price rises. You also see performance shares and restricted stock. I mean, these are a little bit more complicated, but they usually deal with things like, well, you can only sell a stock under certain conditions. We'll talk a little bit more about the details. That I'm going to give you some articles to look at in class on performance shares and restricted stocks. So we'll talk a little bit more about that during the lecture. Retirement plans, pension plans, that's also a big deal. Sometimes you may get additions to 401ks, matching benefits, all these kinds of things, but pensions also. And then, of course, perks. Perks, I think, are where executives really get their bread and butter. Perks can include all sorts of things. They can include down payments on homes. They can include per diems. They can include fancy dinners, fancy conferences, use of a private jet, a driver. Some places will pay, private school tuition for kids, giving maybe a spouse employment. These are all examples of perks, and I think that's probably the best example or the best benefit of being a CEO is all the wonderful perks that they get. And I've always speculated that that's why many CEOs work way past retirement age because they know they may lose their perks if they retire. Now, of course, there's some problems with CEO compensation. Payout sizes can be extraordinary. Even when the CEO fails to perform. Golden handshakes are another problem. So when a CEO is asked to leave a company, some people also call it golden parachute, they get huge compensation and severance packages. So they get a lot of money almost for not performing and for leaving. Poison pills, that's another one. Poison pill basically means that if you have this one company and the CEO has a poison pill, if a rival company tries to buy this company, then they have to pay the executive some ridiculous amount of money. And the money is usually supposed to be so high that it'll prevent that other company or that competitor from buying the company. So, of course, if they want the company badly enough, they'll still pay the poison pill. So it's a way to discourage acquisition. Another thing that you have to look at is the bonuses in the compensation system is usually hundreds of times more than what the average worker gets. Another thing, and stock options, performance shares, and restricted stock are designed to help with this, but frequently CEOs' actions may be in non-conformance with the interest of shareholders. Stock options, sometimes those are abused. We talked about backdating. We're going to talk about backdating during the lecture. So those are all some problems with executive compensation. So this was the last video of the last class. We'll meet in class to discuss a little bit more of the issues surrounding corporate governance. This was something that I initially started my doctorate in. So once again, I hope you found this lecture entertaining and informative. And my name is Duncan Pelly, and we will see you next time.